Welcome back to the channel. The day has arrived. It's the day we're going to strip the VFR carburetors. I have my trusty manual by my side. I have the bench all cleared, blue paper out, and in my methodical nature I've laid out 4 plastic containers. Just goes to show how much I like Chinese food. And I've set them out in the way the cylinders are on the bike. This is the front of the bike. Apparently cylinder 1 is back left, cylinder 2 is front left, cylinder 4 front right, and cylinder 3 back right. Crazy. The first operation, it says, is to remove the diaphragms and springs and needles from the 4 carbs. So we'll get set up with that first of all. And I've never had these off before, but first of all, but even before that, I had to get a proper set of screwdrivers, JIS ones. I was still using the wee screwdriver out of the Honda toolkit because it's got the proper head on it. So we'll open these up and then we'll start taking things apart. Carburetor number 1, back left. Let's start with the diaphragm. I know these have never been off before, these diaphragms, because as I say, I had this bike from new and only sold it to a retired friend of mine for a few years and bought it back, so I know he never had the carburetors off it. Right, should be a spring and a diaphragm in here. As you can imagine, all this is fairly clean. And notice there's a small indent in the top, which lines up with that little vent, obviously to allow pressure to pass. There's the spring. Be able to just push this up. The diaphragm's quite, I want to say wrinkly basically. I might investigate what price a set of diaphragms is. If it's not prohibitively expensive, I'll maybe get a set. There's a few minor differences in carburetor number 4, front right. There's a wee bracket here which holds the choke cable, so I need to remember and get it in the right place before we go into a whole flap and panic on the rebuild. Oh, on your boy. It's fascinating to think that the last time those wee diaphragms saw the light of day was whenever a Japanese gentleman fitted them in about 1980, late 86, early 87 I suppose, when the carburetors were being assembled for the first time. Amazing. Well, that's the 4 diaphragms removed. Let's have a look in the holes here. Not that you can see that terribly well. There's not much to see. I want to spin this round to the light. The only mark that is visible is where the slides have been rubbing up and down for the last 34 years. There's a couple of marks just in there. That's just plastic rubbing on the alloy. So next thing I suppose we should do is to turn over and get to the seat of the problem, which is the bottom of the carburetors, where the needle and seats are that controls the flow of fuel into the float bowls. So even turning the carburetors over confuses me. This is now number 1 on the right hand side. It's gone from the, you know what I mean? It's terrible to be old and stupid. Right, we'll start with the number 1. I've had these bowls off before, and you're going to have to forgive me because there is some form of sealer. What happened the last time was, well, one of the last times, whenever I took the float bowl off, the gaskets, you'll see them here in a minute, they're very, very flat. They've been squashed down, and I put them back together again, put the carbs onto the bike, and the flipping thing, one of them leaked, and I had to start and take the carburetors all off again for the sake of this, the wee gasket in round here, and it nearly put me up the walls. I have a replacement screw set here. I haven't opened them up yet, but I'll open those in a minute and let you have a look at them. 4 screws. This should, said he confidently, again, tap off, and it does. Now, say, forgive me for the gasket sealer. That's the rubber seal, the rubber gasket or O-ring. These are the floats. What happens is the fuel comes in. Now this is upside down. The fuel, it's a bit like the cistern in the bathroom. Same idea. The fuel comes in, the float raises to the top, and whenever the bowl is full, it cuts off this valve and stops the petrol from flowing in. Then as the engine uses the petrol, the float drops down again like that, and the petrol flows in, so on and so forth. But this is a needle and seat, as they call it, which you will see, and it sometimes gets dirty, and even whenever the floats are right up, the petrol still pours in and it goes out over the overflow. So what we'll do is, I'll set this off to the side in its appropriate holder. Well sure, I may as well strip this out. This wee pin that holds the float in, it doesn't need to be secured because it's held within the bowl. It can't go anywhere, so it doesn't need to be pressed in or screwed in. It just sits there. So we'll take out the pin and lift up the float. The wee valve itself is this. That is the needle part, and the seat is in there. That's rubberized, so that whenever that pushes down into the hole, it stops the petrol. So we'll set that to this side as well. This is the main jet and the emulsion tube, and that's the pilot jet. That's the jet that controls the fuel whenever the engine is ticking over at idle. That can come out, and this needle seat can come out as well. There's a small filter in the back end of that. We'll start with the main jet. Nope, that's come out rather easily. Okay. There's a series of holes along here, and yet again, if you can imagine, this is the needle. The needle comes in and out of here, so you accelerate and this draws out and increases the amount of fuel that can flow out through these holes. This is called the emulsion tube. The main jet is through that. There's actually a hole through there which is clear. I'll be truthful with you. We'll set that down there and we'll go for the pilot jet, which is a smaller one. It's just the flooding seems to be the issue, flooding and starting, so if we can get to the bottom of that, I'll be a very happy man. Pilot jet. Yet again, very small, and it's got a very small hole. I can see through that. Leave that down there. Now the needle and seat, it's 10 millimeters in diameter. I don't think I've ever had this off before. Nope. There we go. Okay. As you can see, there's a small filter on there, and a sealing washer. As I thought, I was just stripping the next carb, and this is we're back to the main jet removal. The main jet and the emulsion tube actually come separate. That's the jet on its own, and then the emulsion tube is actually 7mm, which then screws out. So the main jet sits in the bottom of the emulsion tube. I'll split that other one in the first carburetor as well whenever I get round to it. So that's the two of those. Needle and seat side. This is a great wee tool here. It's a snap-on. It's a picker. It's just got a small hooked end, and it fits in everywhere that you need it. It's one of those amazing things. You sort of wonder what you ever did without it. Last one. This is the one that gave the trouble, the leaky one. Even that wee screw, the top corner there, is not in good shape. That's why I ordered the new screw set for it. The head of it's slightly damaged. I would like to see possibly some dirt in the needle valve here. It would sort of justify all this work. But if I do, I do, and if I don't, whatever. Yet again, it's not too bad, apart from that Hylamar picker tool. There's your needle valve here. I'll get the wee pin out. Lift up the float. And you see, it genuinely looks very clean. It's just one of those things. This is the one that was leaking, and that's why I had to do this. Main jet. It actually tells you the size of these on the side of them. I do believe, yeah, that's a 118, which I'm presuming is standard. There's no reason for it not to be.